Hey, let's talk about the IRS. Let's talk about the Benghazi investigations, because it was a rare opportunity to have a guy that's widely respected, appointed during the Bush administration to replace Louis Freeh. And he was the one who actually brought this thing called computer systems, where the computers talk to each other to the FBI. However, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and this might be the last time this Judiciary Committee gets a chance to ask them. And he's the man who should be able to provide the answers on the IRS situation and update us on the investigation.
That's
and
right,
the Benghazi situation.
Sure, because we've got a lot of questions. Let's face it, we'd heard that, there was targeting of Tea Party groups and whatnot. Was it out of Cincinnati? No, now we're hearing it's out of Washington, D.C. There are a lot of questions still unanswered. We understand there's an investigation by the FBI, so yesterday was a chance for Jim Jordan, a Republican from Ohio, to get some answers. He had great questions, but the director of the FBI really didn't come loaded with any answers that satisfied Mr. Jordan. Listen to this 56-second exchange.
How many agents, investigators you've assigned to the case?
May be able to do that, but I'd have to get back to you.
Can you tell me who the lead investigator is?
Off the top of my head, no.
This is the most important issue in front of the country the last 6 weeks. You don't know who's heading up the case? Who the lead investigator is?
At this juncture, no.
So you don't know who's leading the case?
I do not know who is the lead agent.
Do you know if you've talked to any of the victims? Have you talked to any of the groups who were targeted by their government? Have you met with any of the Tea Party folks since May 14th, 2013?
I don't know what the status of the interviews are by the team that's on it. You're asking questions about details of the investigation. I'd be happy to take
that. Is not a detail about the investigation. That took place prior to the investigation started.
May I please finish?
I'm asking basic questions about the investigation, like who's heading it up. And you can't tell me that. You've had a month now to investigate that. This has been the biggest story in the country, and you can't even tell me who the lead investigator is?
So we don't really know if it was a strategy of, ignorance of some sort, or, was it a strategy of let's not really give that many answers because we've seen what's happened in the past with these hearings when you start to open up. Or maybe he simply just doesn't know. You would think that if he didn't know, somebody could pass him a little note to say, here's the name of the lead investigator. The most frustrating thing for the American public is not knowing these answers. If the people in charge are not going to provide the answers, who is going to provide the answers to all of these lingering questions, to up to 4 scandals right now?
This is why happening. This is why Ray Kelly was saying that he gets very, he gets frustrated with the FBI, and that's why they do their own investigating and put their own agents around the world, because they don't seem to be getting the answers from the FBI that he needs to on a timely basis. And the communication between what was happening in Boston and New York and other major cities just wasn't taking place. So if you're responsible for the health and welfare, a lot of times these guys have just taken it into their own hands. And that's what happened with the NYPD.
And speaking of the Tea Parties, it turns out, the guy who runs the FBI, the director, doesn't know about the investigation at the FBI. Turns out a couple of lawyers who represent a number of the Tea Party organizations, Jay Sekulow and also Cleta Mitchell, they both were contacted by the Daily Caller, and the Daily Caller said, hey, what has the FBI asked you about so far during this investigation? And they go, we haven't been contacted by the FBI yet. So why exactly are they slow walking the news over at the FBI? Good question. Doing
it with Benghazi as well. Remember, the FBI couldn't get it on the ground there for 2 weeks for a variety of reasons. Could it be because they were so upset in Libya, the leader was, because he had been embarrassed by calling it a terrorist attack, and then the United States was not calling it a terrorist attack. Whatever the case is, there have been no arrests made with regard to who killed those 4 Americans. And here were more questions now for the FBI Director Mueller yesterday with regard to Benghazi.
The quicker you get to a crime scene, the better you're going to be able to investigate it and process it, right?
Absolutely.
All right. And the Bureau did not get to the crime scene in Benghazi for how long?
I think 2 weeks.
And why did the Bureau not get to the crime scene in Benghazi for 2 weeks?
There were a number of factors. And the first one relates to the state of security in Benghazi. There was no security.
If Benghazi was not safe enough for the premier law enforcement agency in the world to go, how was it safe enough for us to send diplomats?
Great question. Maybe the administration knows the answers and doesn't want them out in public.
Well, that wouldn't affect Robert Mueller. I think that
you would think.
I wouldn't think because it's independent. But I would say this. The other questions, I don't think he has any idea about. I don't think he was covering up. I think he has no idea and it seems to be no interest in the IRS investigation.
Well, that shows the priorities.
Doesn't seem to have any interest in Benghazi. And the crazy thing is, we actually heard them talking. The Al Shura network, we got the intercepts, maybe through the NSA. We know exactly where they were located for weeks, for months. They're now dispersed and gone. They are still walking around. It's been months, and there's still no one person, except a blurry overhead shot of two guys of people of interest.
And that's what Mueller said yesterday. Well, we have some suspects, and we've got some video.
Right.
And?
Here's Rudy Giuliani. He's disturbed by this.
Seems terribly disengaged. I mean, I was at the highest level of the Justice Department, the third-ranking official in the Justice Department during the Reagan administration for some very serious and very sensitive investigations. If you asked me who the lead investigator was, well, I had met with that guy probably about 20 times, so it would have been right on the tip of my tongue. I don't get it. I mean, you have this IRS scandal going on, outrageous violation of people's rights. The FBI director has to be on top of that. The FBI director has to be knowing that that's going on. You've got Benghazi. I don't understand how they didn't get in there for 2 weeks. I've never heard of law enforcement officials not going to a crime scene because it's too dangerous. I mean, that's what law enforcement officials do.
Mueller was schooled, obviously, in the NSA. He went into great detail on how our system's already been compromised by what that 29-year-old exposed to China. And he does think that he downloaded additional information that shows that it did get worse. And the stuff that he has, he was not supposed to have access to.
Well, they would know what he downloaded by now, probably. But,
they do know, according to the LA Times.
And according to Snowden himself, there's going to be more to come with that Guardian newspaper.
Well, you know what? Maybe Mr. Mueller will amend the record. Maybe he'll send over the answers. Today, he just didn't want to be on camera answering the hard stuff.